good morning, everyone. This is a unique interview. I'm Anita Finley, and you're of course watching the Zoomer Times TV presentation. And I'm very happy to interview authors and scientists and people from all walks of life. But today we have an author. It's a rare. The author is not rare, but what he's created is rare. And I'm just going to put it up here. It's called Synagogue Stamps, and it's actually an international postage tour of synagogues. And I'm gonna put it in front of my face. And he really means it. I have to tell you, it's a thick book. I'll show you. It's very thick, hardcover, and I can't make you see all the pictures, but I gotta tell you, it is the most gorgeous book. I've been reviewing books for many years. I've never had a book like this. And when I first saw it, I went crazy and I said, boy, we really need to review this book. So I got to tell you who the author is now, and it's Harvey D. Wolinetz.
Wolinetz.
Didn't I say it right? I said Wolinetz. Oh, I thought I said Wolinetz. I guess it came out wrong. Harvey Wolinetz, and he certainly has spent 50 years doing this. I mean, this is not casual. So I'm going to introduce Harvey and just start off with, Harvey, this is monumental. Tell us about this, and had you always dreamt of doing this?
I would say I always dreamt of it, but certainly in the last bunch of years, as I saw what my collection was starting to focus a lot on Judaica and things of that sort, I saw a lot on synagogues, and it got my interest because whenever I traveled, I always went to see the synagogues in the countries that I was in. And now it seems that so many of them are represented on stamps, it just was a natural fit.
So I want to ask you about that story of stamps. Does every synagogue, like here in Boynton Beach or in South Florida, does every synagogue have a stamp?
Oh no, it's a fraction of all the synagogues around, and it depends
Tell
what.
us about.
Well, it's not only the fact that the synagogue is on a stamp. I was looking for a connection in order to have a wide, balanced book in synagogues around the world. So there are synagogues that are not shown on the stamps. However, items from that synagogue are displayed on stamps. So we've used that as a representative of the synagogue to use the synagogue. There are also cases where just the postmark, because in other words, a particular city commemorated 100th anniversary of a synagogue, they made a postmark for it. Didn't have a stamp, but it was a regular stamp of anything else, but the postmark showed a picture sometimes of the whole synagogue building. So that also brought it into the book. Then there was a whole series put out by B'nai B'rith of mailing postcards where they featured a synagogue on every postcard. That whole series is in here as a separate chapter. And it gives a nice wide variety, worldwide, even in America too, also, of the synagogues that are around and how they got there, what happened to them, which is somewhat of a sad story, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, that's true. And you told me when we were talking before that sometimes those synagogues aren't there anymore, and the only thing that people can look at is the stamp.
Well, in many cases, there are museums that have reproductions of the synagogues, and you can see those there if you go to those museums in Washington D.C. or in Israel. The major problem that hit the synagogue, aside from age, some of the synagogues are 1,000 years old. And so, of course, they out of aging, they just disappeared and they were replaced, whatever. But the biggest tragedy occurred during World War II with the Nazis. They should be cursed and whatever, because they destroyed so many synagogues just to burn them down. Fortunately, a lot of them had pictures already and some reproduction, so we're able to get something out of it. Not for me, but they were there, and I was able to use that as a basis of featuring it in the book.
Well, we thought so much of this book that we made it the publisher's choice in our March issue of Boomer Times. So some of you, who's ever watching, you can actually remember the review. Or for those of you who've not seen the review, you can go to our website, the boomertimesfl.com website, and open up the March issue, because we have them archived, and then you'd be able to see the review. And Harvey lives here in South Florida, actually. He lives in Surfside. And I want to get back, though, to the book. I have so many questions to ask you. So you, though, told me you were originally a stamp collector as a kid. That's
Yes.
how it would have started, right?
I started when I was probably about 8 or 10 years old. My neighbor gave me a little album with some stamps, and over the years, it just kept my interest.
Right. There are, and you showed me a book, a magazine. There are stamp collectors all over the world still, aren't there?
There are. Unfortunately, it's not a growing hobby right now. It's a little shrinking because of the competition from all the electronics that are out there in terms of phones and cell phones and games. So it's got a lot of competition that it never had before, but it's surviving.
Right. So what is but there's a great value in stamps. Aren't there very expensive stamps that people who are stamp
Oh,
collectors
sure, there are
will
still
buy
stamp
for?
auctions where stamps bring hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's true. That's widespread also. But I'm talking about in general, kids collecting, people collecting to gain an interest. You got to start somewhere. You're not going into stamps just as an investment. You go in there originally because you like it, you find it interesting, you find it challenging. It's always interesting when you collect. There are a lot of stamp clubs around. People go, they interchange with each other. So it can be a very beautiful social hobby.
Right. So, well, there's another question that I have that's, I think really important. There are so many synagogues that you have captured from all over the world. Can you just name a few of the countries? I mean, it's amazing. I just did some of the countries I never heard of. I mean, you have
Well, of
just
course, you
really,
have Israel, which is a chief
of course.
publisher of many of the Israeli stamps.
Yeah.
And ironically enough, the Arab world, you have got about 5 countries that have put out stamps with synagogues on them, which include Tunisia, Iraq, Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. Which is amazing in a sense. South Africa has put out stamp on a synagogue there. In Europe, you have a bunch of countries. I don't want to go through naming everything unless you want me to. I can, but there are three,
No,
four,
but
five.
what it shows is that this is not just something casual. This is
No,
very
it's
important,
widespread,
isn't it?
very widespread. One of the topics that are not per country but focused was called Kristallnacht, which is the night of the broken glass, which was when the Germans really went crazy and attacked synagogues and Jewish places all over all over Germany, and which was, by the way, again one of the highlights. In effect, that the synagogue is probably the most significant representative of the Jewish people. If there's a Jewish community somewhere, eventually they put up a synagogue. And if they wanted to attack the Jewish community, the synagogue was high on the list or at the top of the list.
Mm-hmm. We see that today.
Yep, still that today. You see what's going on today. Even I tell you, I also live in the Bronx and Riverdale. They just arrested somebody. He was not trashing, but causing damage to 4 different synagogues, including one of them that I go to. By throwing rocks through the glass, just out of nowhere.
Terrible, terrible. Well, and synagogues are usually quite beautiful. When you go inside, everything is elegant and the outside, and so
Some
a
of them
lot
you
of
can
money
see
has
from
been spent.
some of you can see from the pictures, absolutely magnificent.
Right.
Now, I was always under the impression that the synagogues copied many of the features of the churches and of the mosques, but it's also the reverse that was true too. They copied many of the features of synagogues that were done.
Well, let me just tell everybody, you are listening to Harvey D. Wolinetz, and he is the author of this. It's a rare book, just like a lot of his stamps are rare. It's called Synagogue Stamps, an International Postage Tour of Synagogues. And whether you even went to synagogues, even if you're not Jewish, I have to tell you, it's a masterpiece. This is what the front cover looks like, but and I've been through so many of these. Some of the buildings are just like churches, as you were saying, and who copied who, I don't know, but and then there's an explanation about every one of them. See, then there's postage stamps. I mean, the other thing is that Harvey is willing to give speeches. He'll bring his books and he'll give speeches, and he isn't going to charge you for his speeches. So if you're interested, there are a lot of groups out here that are always looking for speakers. You'll really be a celebrity if you bring Harvey on, because he's rare. He does he loves this. You can see it. I mean, here now at his age, this is really his legacy. Harvey, I guess you have grandchildren, But this is your legacy,
A
isn't
few
it?
great-grandchildren too already.
Yeah, and so do your grandchildren, well, your great-grandchildren may be too young, um, but do they like to hear the story? See, every page is a story. And it's hard to get through this because it's very large, but it's just so elegant and so important. And the pages are heavy paper. I think I'd like to go back then to something you told me when I first saw it. You have a designer in Italy, in Israel, correct? And
Yes.
that's who helped you with all this?
Donnie Finkel helped me with the layouts and the coloring and the pagination, the way we did it. Did a fantastic job. And he's also doing a fantastic job on my next book, which is going to be the Arab-Israeli conflict on stamps. To be a little bit bigger than this book and a lot more complex, and I expect a lot more controversial.
Well, but I love that you're doing this in your later years, because so many people, you ask them what they do, well, they're retired. They go to have breakfast, lunch, dinner, they go to the movies, or they sit around watching TV. Not you, though. I'm very in great admiration of who you are and what you've done with your elder years.
I'm grateful for the opportunity, especially with this whole pandemic business where everybody's in isolation. This gives me what to do. Oh, so it really works.
Right.
Really a
And so
solution.
do you have a special room where you do this that you've designated for all your stamps so nobody touches anything?
Well, I have an office in my home, in my apartment. So usually, and I don't have any little children running around anymore, so it's okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so what did you do when you had children? Because you were collecting for a long time.
I would have them in boxes. I have albums. I try to sort them out a little bit. My biggest problem is I never get rid of anything. So I always keep accumulating more and more. But it worked out very, very nicely.
So you're telling me you're a stamp hoarder?
Yeah.
Would you
I'm
have
trying to focus on less. I'm
Right.
just looking through the book now to give you a picture of some of the fanciest synagogues.
Okay. Yeah,
For example, Croatia
some.
has one in Zagreb. That's page 130 if you want to show it.
Yeah, okay, 130. Okay, hold on. Yeah, see, just like that, when I saw the one in Croatia, it's like, my God, here it is. Here it is.
Yeah.
It's just, who would think of a synagogue in Croatia looking like that? I mean, think about this. We're talking about years ago. You know how long it took to build a synagogue like that, and how much money and the kind of craftsmen that had to do it?
Yeah, depended on the synagogue. There's also Tunisia, which is more of an Arab country, on page 92. Has
Okay,
a beautiful synagogue on the outside. And if you look, there are pictures on the opposite page of the inside of the synagogue, which is just magnificent.
Okay, hold on. I'm going there. It's heavy. I'm gonna have muscles when I'm finished with this.
And
Oh
Tunisia
my
put out the
gosh,
stamp.
yes. Look at that. Just look at
See the
that.
stamp?
Yeah, look at that stamp. It's absolutely gorgeous. And this is like page after page after page, and it is really a conversation piece. So if you're having any of your celebrations, any of the holidays, if you bring this book, everybody is going to be so interested in it as compared to, just talking, just friendly talk.
Well,
This is
I
really
try to give
important.
I try to give it a double feature. One was that it shows for stamp collectors because it has good indexes, everything is labeled, but it's also a coffee table book. I set it
Yes.
up that way. You don't have to read 50 pages at a time in order to enjoy it. So
Right.
I'd like
I've
to
had
point
it
out one
since-
more synagogue.
Okay,
at
which
this
one?
point. If you look in Italy, page 244 in Florence,
Okay,
it sort of
244.
tells you the story. You
Okay,
see the
wait a minute.
outside, the inside, and in front of it, where I personalize it a bit more, it's a picture of my first wife.
Oh, here. Oh, yeah. You do. You do a lot on that. And so you write a lot about that.
Yeah. I try to personalize it a little bit with myself. One of my daughters in the Turo Synagogue in Rhode Island. I have my daughter, Rena, who helped me with some of the book. So she's there also. My other kids, I have a Tammy, a Rena, and a Tara, my son Aaron. They all pitched in a little bit to help wherever they could, so that it worked
They
out
must
very,
be
very
so
nicely.
thrilled to see this book that you have created. You see, some people leave memoirs, but this is a big memoir of you. I mean, I know you worked very hard, and you told me it was almost worth 50 years of, struggle and getting it together, but.
Well, I didn't work on it for 50 years, but it took about 5 years, I say, to put it together at the end, when they have everything together to work
Right.
it out.
So you really are a rare author. And I told you that when I first met you and saw you and said, this is extraordinary. It's, you must feel very proud of yourself, because a lot of authors write novels, they write mysteries, or they do biographies, autobiographies. Do you know of anyone that has done anything like this?
There are books on stamps that are out. There are other books on stamps out.
Like
various
this?
things. I don't know if it's exactly like this, but it depends on what your particular engagement was that you enjoyed or that you focus on to write a history. Some are more limited, a history of a particular item on stamps or a particular building that may be on a number of stamps. This is pretty widespread. So, but there are a lot of good stamp books out there.
Right. I want to tell everybody there are a lot of Jewish organizations, especially Jewish organizations here in South Florida. I'm going to give you Harvey's phone number. Make a phone call to him. It's Harvey D. Wolinetz, and I want you to call him and book him, because it will make you the best speakers program director of anything. I mean, you all know me. I've been doing this for many years. So get your pencils out. Write this phone number down. It's 914-815-0400. I'll repeat that. It's 914-815-0400. And that's Harvey Wolinetz, Wolinetz. And I will tell you, even though you book him for 30 minutes, people are going to come up. They're going to not want him to leave. They're going to want to look through the book, and you can buy this book. It's really inexpensive. It's $49, and it's worth probably $500 because of what it is. People spend $500 jewelry. They spend it on fancy clothing. Nobody would get the pleasure of this book for the $49. It's gorgeous. So, before we have to leave, Harvey, I mean, you've really done a great job with this. And I just am so thrilled that you were on today. So I wanted to make a clarification. So you're saying that there are synagogues, and you featured them. Not everybody has stamps. Do they actually have stamps made and then they sell them to their congregation? How does that work?
No. Stamps are put out by the municipalities. It's a synagogues don't put out their own stamps. Real postage stamps, you can put out labels, but postage stamps can only be put out by the governments.
Oh, so someone has to convince them to do this.
Well, that's right. Depending on the strength of the Jewish community in a particular area, that's why they celebrate the 100th anniversary of a synagogue with a postmark or to put out a stamp, because it depends on the Jewish community or what the history of the Jewish community was. I'd like to leave, before I leave, I say one more thing. That as much as I loved writing this book and teaching, I learned a lot by writing it. I really learned as much as I probably give over. It was fantastic. I learned about the synagogues, what happened to them, how they were built, what motivated it. It was a great lesson in learning, and that's, to me, was very important.
Well, you were going to do this with you another time, and that's a very good topic. The history of those synagogues are, of course, many of those histories are in your book, but you will know a lot more. Now, when you had to do the postage stamp, did you have to know about the history?
Well, today, one big advantage of today over yesterday, you go online, you find everything. And you find a good rewriting on a lot of these synagogues. So you can look up whatever you want.
So you live in Surfside. Your synagogue, does it have a postage stamp?
No.
Are you
However, I have a synagogue in New York, in Riverdale where I live, where it so happens that the Israeli government put out a postage stamp with a synagogue ark cover. The ark, what's called a parochet in Hebrew, an ark cover on the stamp. Therefore, my synagogue in Riverdale is in a book.
That's That's great. So
The
that's
cover-
right.
the
You'll take it
synagogue cover.
anywhere, right?
The Ark cover is on the stamp.
Okay, so let's say that some people down here in South Florida want to have their synagogue on a stamp. Would you be able to help them, direct them in how they could do it?
They'd have to petition the local, the stamp issuing authority. Depends, if they live in Florida, the state of Florida doesn't issue the stamp. It's the US government that issues the stamps.
Okay,
So you have to
if
petition
there's
the US
enough,
government, or you
enough
start with your
political
assemblyman or
power,
the congressman to get it,
right?
but you gotta have a good reason. Not so simple.
Well, a good reason is because it's beautiful and because a lot of people go there, and it's important, as you said, it establishes the Jewish community, which is important.
Yes, well, not that it establishes it, it shows that it's there. It shows it's representative of the Jewish community, depending on where it is. So,
So
yes,
you said, Harvey, that there are a lot of synagogues, of course, which the Nazis destroyed, but they are there in pictures that you do have them.
yes. So
See,
the memory is there. That they weren't able to destroy, fortunately.
see, that's beautiful, Harvey, isn't it?
And as you asked, there's also a whole chapter on United States synagogues that are in the book.
Mm-hmm,
So
that's right.
you get an idea of what's there also.
Yeah, you know, I really applaud you. Yay. Harvey
Thank
did a
you.
great job on this book. And as I started telling everybody when we first came on, I interview a lot of people, and I've interviewed all sorts of books, some famous people, some not so famous people, but we have had a lot of people here in South Florida who've written about the Holocaust. And I do try to have them on, but it's not, and it's a sad story. But this isn't a sad story. This is a historical story. And stamp collectors, I know there are plenty of people watching who are stamp collectors, and they're probably in awe of what you've done. So my suggestion is to call Harvey, have a conversation with him. His number again is 914-815-0400. And the book's called Synagogue Stamps, an International Postage Tour of Synagogues. I mean, that's not casual. And, you know, you should really take a bow. And when you go, I know you've made speeches before. Will you come up to Fort Lauderdale to make speeches? Because I know you're in Surfside.
Yeah, shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. And
Only a
even
matter of
people,
timing.
that's right. And people in Palm Beach County, I mean, this would make the best speaker program that you're going to have. I just mean that. Even if
Thank
you,
you.
because it's so interesting, it's rare, and you'll have a chance to buy the book right there and have it signed by Harvey. This will be an heirloom that you'll pass to your family, because
you.
once it's here, it's not going anywhere. All those synagogues, I mean, it's in this book, and it's displayed beautifully. These are not black and white pictures. These are full color with writing about it. I mean, you can see, Harvey, how excited I am about your book. I told
I
you
do.
when I first met you.
I enjoyed it very much, and I was happy with the way it came out.
Yeah, well, I'm happy too, and we're still going to have another interview with you in the future. And I think it would be good to maybe pick a few synagogues that you know intimately, and that we could, then you could feature about the history. People, see, I don't really know the history of synagogues, why, what happened, who decided to build it. It took a lot of money to do that. It isn't just a little tent. These are big concrete structures that look like huge churches. So anyway,
Well, I started at the very beginning, before there was a real fixed structure, when the Jews left Egypt with the tabernacle. That was a portable one that went up and down. That's the beginning.
right.
The end is still going. We haven't reached
Yep.
an end yet, fortunately.
Okay, well, we're out of time, Harvey, but you did great today. And
Thank you very much. I appreciate the
and
interview.
Harvey said he is a Zoom virgin, and so this is very good. And he's going to be doing a lot of Zoom after this, I know. But thank you again, Harvey, and
Thank you
stay
very
in good
much.
health. And we'll be talking to you again.
My wife
Bye,
Louise, by the way,
everybody.
was very happy that this happened too.
Thank you. I'm happy
Thank
you
you.
did too. Okay, everybody, we'll be back another time. Bye.
Bye-bye.